Hey guys, welcome to the 10x Launchpad. This is our first live session, and I'm excited about all the new people who joined the group recently. Happy to have you as part of this group, and happy to learn together here. We'll just do a few checks in the beginning to make sure people can actually listen to it and make sure everything's working before we jump into the topic here. The topic today is why should I work in software engineering? And that why is a pretty important one. And I want to share a little bit about my personal story. Let me just confirm that everything looks good on the technical side here. Just one moment. Okay, sounds good. Looks like we have a green light. Okay, great. So to start, I wanted to share why I work in software engineering and what motivates me. My story is a little bit unique, probably different than what many other people went through. But when I was a child, the first time I encountered a computer was when my cousin got one. It was a very old one, Commodore 64. Ancient compared to what we have in our hand in cell phones nowadays. And of course, the first thing that you do as a kid when you discover that, I probably was about 11 years old, is you figure out how to play games on it, and you try to explore the new world that way. So that's what I did for a little bit. Of course, it was my cousins. I couldn't use it all the time. We just could explore it when we hung out together. And then maybe a year or two later, I was able to get my own one. I played around with it. It was a more modern version. And once I got used to it a little bit more, I wanted to understand how it works under the surface. So I bought a programming book, just something that I heard applies to the kind of computer I got. It was an Amiga. And I started reading it, not knowing that what I got was a reference guide. So it wasn't a tutorial or anything that actually helps you learn a programming language. So it was really hard to figure out how to learn how to program using that book. But, I was a kid. I had no idea. My parents had never used a computer. So just trying to figure things out. But I was still fascinated by the technology. And then a little later in school, they added computer science classes, interestingly. And I had to choose, okay, do I want a second language? Do I want my computer science class? And the second language option at that time was French. So I had to say no to French and yes to computer science because that was a clear winner. Much more interesting, right? So I went with that and learned my first programming language called BASIC. It was really fun to play around with that, develop small interactions and little games with it. And sometimes, since our teacher was also new to programming, it was really a math teacher that was asked to teach people how to do that. Sometimes the teacher didn't know what to do. So occasionally I was able to figure out how to solve something, and I was able to help the teacher, which was pretty fun, and the first indication that I may have a little bit of a gift in this area. So that led to me later starting an apprenticeship program in Germany, where I grew up, which is kind of the standard way to learn if you don't want to go to university. And there's nothing wrong with going to university or getting a degree, but I was just at a place, once I had done 10 years of school, I wanted to do something practical, not just study for 3 more years and then maybe for 4 or 5 more years. I wanted to learn something that I can actually apply and impact people's lives. So that's what I did. I did that apprenticeship program, which is about 60% practical and 40% you go to school and you learn all the topics you need. And it was a computer science apprenticeship with 30% business administration. So I basically learned new programming languages there, got my first task that I was able to solve, and later, after the 3-year apprenticeship program, worked for the company and made progress there. But it was also close to the year 2000 when all of the exciting stuff with the internet happened. So I was interested in exploring that a little bit more than I could in this larger company I was a part of called Hapag-Lloyd, a container shipping company. They were a cool company, but they didn't use the newest technology. They used whatever made sense for them to generate the most business value, mostly proven tools, a little bit acquainted from my perspective and what I had learned at school, even though there was a mix. Some of the school topics also dealt with the older programming languages and such. So I started freelancing at first and used all the new tools I wanted, found some clients that I could build some software tools for, and also started some things on my own, built first websites and such. It was a very interesting time, which led to co-founding a company. I ran that company for 4 or 5 years. We had about 15 employees when I transitioned and started working from the US for, well, not really working. I actually went to the US to study for 2 years, just to explore a little bit, expand my horizon. And that was very interesting, led to a lot of insights. And fast forward 10 years later or so, probably a little less than that, I started working for my first US company. And currently I work for a company that's headquartered in the Silicon Valley area, California Bay Area. And they have offices on the East Coast, which is where I work in the United States. And that's a lot of fun. That's a little bit my background, why I like programming, but we'll go a little bit into the details on what some of the benefits are later. Of course, it's a very extreme example of somebody who maybe felt very early in their life that they had an interest in this area. A lot of people don't discover it that early, and that's great. I actually have a great friend who I play volleyball with, who was an accountant for the first part of his career, maybe about 6 years. And after that, he heard about software engineering, computer science, and he was interested in it, but he didn't really know if he should do the jump and learn something new, change his whole career, because his career was kind of going well. He had a good job at a good company, but he still had this interest. So what he decided to do is he did some evening lessons at a university, a local one, on what they offered, and that program helped him to get a certificate where he would get hired for his first software engineering job about a year ago. And he really loves software engineering now, no more accounting work, and he is on a great trajectory to enjoy his career in computer science. So that's another example that's very different, and I think it's encouraging for people that may have a completely different role right now but are considering to go into computer science. And I have a heart to help people from different backgrounds and learn new tech skills so they can grow in these areas. Okay, so let me see if I can share a few slides here, so we can look at some of the details of the topic. It looks like I may have to switch the video real quick, the way Facebook does that. Give me a moment here.